The last question here, James. First year player. And the reason I just wanted to throw this out to you, first year player is tough because can anyone really be underrated, or is there nothing but underrated? Because we have, for the most part, small sample sizes. The Bridge League this year took away a decent amount of, I guess, stats and like looks that people were going to end up getting because they were untelevised, unsanctioned, unstat counted games. Braylon Payne would have been a prime example if he didn't get that last little run. That would have been one of those super sneaky ones. So Bridge League kind of ruined some of those things. So the question I ask is first-year player full of underrated prospects, or can a prospect even be underrated when we haven't seen enough? I got a couple guys in my mind that I think might fit the bill of underrated to different degrees, but that overarching question, do you think it is full of or can't be for first-year player?
I would say it can't be. I think it's just like you have targets, but I don't think just because they're targets means they're underrated. But maybe it's just like underrated is my board versus your board, and I've got a guy 5 spots higher, and that means he's underrated. But I just don't think we can say with any certainty right now what these guys are going to be. So I'm sure there will be guys who were drafted too late in the first year player draft, but I would kind of just refer to them as like, these are my targets in this range, and I hope that it works out and it looks like a good pick. But
maybe what it is they can't be underrated relative to the top 500 prospect. That's like you and I do a top 500. Mm-hmm. They can't really be relative to that, but maybe they can be underrated relative to their peers of first-year players and how they're being drafted. A prime example, I think would be Braylon Payne. I think Braylon Payne, there's a serious power question in Braylon Payne's game. He was, kind of reminded, they're nothing alike, but it reminded me of when the Rays took Xavier Isaac. There was a little bit of a like, what? Like, huh? And Braylon Payne, I think, kind of threw some people off, but then I got to see him. I got to see him in his pro debut in the Bridge League. Fast as can be, crossbody hit tool, great control of the zone. That's something we use a lot when I'm just trying to describe a player that, like, they're not fooled. It's a great hit tool. It's overall great hit tool with aggressive base stealing. Reminds me of the type of guy that's going to steal 50 bases, but there's a really serious power question in him. I still kind of think from like the unknowns that are floating out there, like Braylon Payne is like an underrated first-year player relative to his peers, but I do know that people have started to catch up and rank him higher. I don't know where you have him. Do you think maybe relative to the rest of the crew, he's a guy that could qualify as far as first-year player versus each other could be underrated? Or do you have him too high now?
I've got him 19 for first-year player, but I've got him in a tier from 11 to 20. So I think I think he's just a really solid second-round pick and first-year player.
Do you got a couple? I'm going to throw out a couple guys here, and if you've got a couple guys, again, underrated relative to the entire class of prospects, no, but maybe underrated comparative to the first-year player. I think Bryce Rayner might still be a little, and that's like a high-end player. I think there's a lot of focus on, Griffin and obviously the top college bats. And I think Rayner is one of those guys that in those low teens of, like between 8 and 15, somewhere where he's going to get drafted is underrated. Braylon Payne is one. Tyson Lewis is a much deeper play. I think is kind of underrated relative to the class with the Reds. Really good hit tool. Kind of all of these guys came up together. I got to see him a bunch. One of those players I would liken to Cooper Pratt in that just every day you see him, gets a hit. And I went out to Reds quite a few times. Every time I saw him, he's getting hits. There's good speed. And Dylan Dreiling also with the Rangers, a college bat. I think, wasn't it College World Series MVP? Just like really solid overall bat. I think he's just going so low in markets. He's a great bet for someone that could move up. There's a couple players that I think are maybe underrated in the first year player. Do you have a couple you want to throw at us?
I do. I think you're going to like it because they're all Diamondbacks.
We get Waldschmidt. Let's go.
I think Ryan Waldschmidt, I think Slade Caldwell, and I think JD Dix are all.
Wow, the whole class.
I'd like all three of them a lot. I've got them all in my top 20. I expect to end up with at least one or two in all my first year player drafts, basically. So yeah, I really liked what the Diamondbacks did on the position player side. I think Waldschmidt has a very high ceiling and a very low floor. He's missed a ton of time, but when he's been at his best and as healthiest, he's looked like a 5 category guy. Really shaky defensive profile despite the speed. So that's a question, but I just think he's got a really high ceiling. And then Caldwell, like where are you at on like Caldwell versus Payne?
I've got Caldwell. Caldwell is so like on my board. I do my first year player ranks. I separate them so people could view them like from a round perspective. So I do top 15. That's like round 1, and then da da da. Caldwell's in my round 1. He's in my top 15. I will say, I didn't get to go and see him. Diamondbacks are a little bit of a trek for me, and I wasn't sure if they were open during the Bridge League. It ended up they were, but I got to get some video for some people. See, you don't want to focus on this stuff. He's a little alarmingly smaller than you think, and it's like, why are the Diamondbacks only draft these 5'7" outfielders or whatever? But big, stocky guy, great athlete, size be damned. I think there's power, definite power in there. There's great speed. I like Caldwell to burn, but I've got Caldwell and Schmidt both kind of in that first to second round cusp. Are you top 15 on Caldwell?
I've got him at 16. So maybe he's not underrated. I mean,
well, I have him at 14. By the way, I have him at 14, so we're not that far.
But then
off.
I've got JD Dix at 20. I think Dix is just a really good hitter who his shoulder surgery just kind of prevented him from proving that he was, one of the best prep guys in this class. But just for the stuff we care about in fantasy, I think Dix is really solid. So I've got all 3 of those guys in the 16 to 20 range for me. And then like two deeper guys. I really like Levi Sterling, prep righty that the Pirates took. And I really like Cale Fountain, prep third baseman that the Padres took. But yeah, I mean, just pure flyers, but I think there's upside worth chasing there.
I saw Cale and Cobb Hightower. Cale's a big dude too. He's one of those guys you look at and you're just like, yep, those are the, like, I remember seeing like Batanti and like George Wolko last year and you get excited. Cale Fountain kind of has that same vibe. It's a pretty interesting class out there. I was about to say, do you notice we didn't say a lot of pitchers? My most underrated thing would be taking college pitchers that drop in first year player. That's the fun. And taking late high school arms, so if people are like reaching super, super high on like a Durangelo or something like that, when you can get maybe, a falling, I don't know, even Cash Mayfield falling, but when you can get some of those falling arms, Trey Savage tends to fall a bit. Yeah.
One college guy that might fit the bill for me there is Jonathan Santucci, the lefty that the Mets took. He's just going to be really cheap. So I agree with you though. Like college. If you like a college starter in like the 3rd or 4th round of your FYPD, I think that's a great use of resources.
Yeah, like Drew Beam really late. Royals have done some good things with pitchers. Gage Jump, with the A's, something like that. Just a couple guys to go really late. Tons of